Hi guys, Rose here with the Cackling Moon, and this is going to be a discussion about tarot, a discussion about how you guys can begin to learn the deck. Um, and I just want to talk about it because I receive a lot of questions on my Tumblr blog of people who ask for just advice, being beginners, being new to the tarot, and they ask for a lot of advice on how do they start? Where do you start? So let's talk about the cards. I have here my Albano Waite tarot. So it's a typical tarot deck. It's Rider Waite. And what I suggest is when you're finding your first deck, go with something that you feel connected to. Go with a deck that you enjoy the artwork for, that you find attractive, the colors, the art, the meanings. Every deck is different. Every deck has a different energy. Some decks will give certain types of energies for readings than others, and as you advance and as you grow with purchasing multiple decks, you'll find that that's so true. They have their own personalities. So what I started off with when I began my journey was the original Rider Waite. So it wasn't this deck, but it's basically the same artwork. um and I learned from that. I was always attracted to the typical images of the tarot that you would see anywhere, which is, usually it's a Rider Waite based art. Um, and so I felt like I needed to have that deck. I wanted to start off with that one. That's what I was called for. Now, a lot of people start off with that deck. It doesn't mean that that's the one you have to start off with. By all means, you can start off with any deck that you feel connected to. It doesn't have to be Rider Waite. So once you get yourself your deck, and there's myths all over where you got to be gifted your deck, someone else has to give it to you, you're not supposed to buy it yourself. All of that is nonsense. Get yourself a deck, purchase it yourself. I purchased mine. My original Rider Waite was actually used, so I bought it used. I did not buy it brand new. I bought it used off of Amazon, and it was the best thing I ever did. And some people have a thing against buying used decks versus new ones. It's preference. It's really preference. So the only thing you have to be careful for if you are purchasing a used deck is that all of the cards are in it. Because, and I will tell you from example, my deck, this one, it was missing two cards. And it was a little upsetting, but at the same time it was like, it's no big deal. I have so many other Rider Waite versions. So what I did was, as you can see, the two cards that I needed to fill in to make this deck whole, I actually took them from my original Rider Waite pack. So I plugged them in. They're the same size. Usually most of the Rider Waite decks are the same size. It's just the only difference is the color scheme is different and the backs. So while I'm shuffling the cards, I try not to pay attention to the fact that a blue card will come up versus the white backs. But it doesn't bother me, and I've been working with them for a while, so it's no big deal. But that is one thing to be sure when you are purchasing a used deck. Please make sure that it has all of the cards, because that's one thing you have to worry about is if you don't have a full deck of cards and they're missing some, you'll have to either plug in where you missed, or it's just you want to have a full deck. You want to have every single card. It's you don't want to have one missing. That could be a message for a client that you wouldn't be able to give them because that card is missing from your deck. So when you have your cards, I always say allow your cards to mesh with your energy, and by doing that you can carry them with you. So I keep my cards usually in little deck bags, or in their boxes, and I carry them in my purse. I put one in my purse. Each week is different. Usually I'll feel called to for a certain deck to go with me around town, or if it's a brand new deck that I purchased, I will drop it in my purse and carry it with me all week. Even if I'm not really doing much with it, it's just with me. And that's my way of letting the deck absorb my energy. And I feel like that's very important when you are trying to get yourself familiar with your deck. Next, I would say to learn the cards. Obviously, you're going to go through your cards. You're going to go through them one by one. You're going to look at all the images, shuffle them, play around with them, just get yourself used to them. But at the same time, I would suggest using a journal base, and keeping a tarot journal. And that's what I did. So this is a typical moleskin journal that I purchased from Barnes & Noble a few years back. And I had an extra tarot deck that I really wasn't using the cards for anything. So what I did was I glued them into every page of the journal, and then I started writing about each of those cards. And that's how I started my tarot journal. So this tarot journal has, the deck glued to each page, and then I'll write a little passage of information, how I feel about this card, the meanings of this card, and I have it there for my own personal reference. Now, if I ever, even to this day, like, because it's been years, it's been about 3 years since I started this journey, I will still go in and plug stuff in. So if I come up with another, that meaning that came up in a client reading and that's perfect, I'll go back to my tarot journal and I'll add it in. Now, I have not finished it. I still have many, many blank pages where I do have to fill it in. It's a process. It doesn't mean that I'm not learning anymore because I'm not actively writing in my journal. It just means that I I found other ways that I can learn the cards, and it's not just by writing them down in a journal, but it does help. It is very helpful, and it's kind of nice to have something that you have physically to grab to look through. And it's if you guys are like me, I learn very well hands-on, actually doing it or writing it down, like taking notes. That's how I learn. So if you guys are like me, and if you know that you're like that, I suggest keeping a tarot journal. It's going to be very helpful for you guys. Another thing I would say is keeping a spreads journal. So for me, I started out with this one, and this was a journal that I kept where I was writing down spreads that I came up with on my own. I know that there's a crap load of spreads online that you can look up on various tarot blogs that people come up with, but I like to come up with my own, and that's because I feel like that's kind of a whole part of the Cackling Moon. My business with the tarot and reading the cards is very homemade. It's very unique in that way that I create a lot of the spreads that I offer in my shop. So pretty much I would say 99% of the readings that I offer in my shop are spreads that I personally created. They are not spreads that I've taken from anybody. They could be spreads that I've been inspired by from other people, but generally they are stuff that I create on my own. And so I keep them logged in a journal, and I love journaling. So that's just one of my things. But as you can see, I have them written down, and I write them all, so I have them in there. And like, here's some more. They're just notes. This whole journal is filled with spreads. Not all of these spreads made it into the shop. Some of these spreads I haven't yet used, or I haven't decided yet if I wanted to create a reading for that particular spread, but they're in here, and I have a crap load. There's just tons. So this has helped me with my journey as well, because when you are creating your own content, you are learning at the same time. And when you're creating your own spreads, you know the intent that you had for that spread, so you know what the purpose of that reading is going to be, and you know how that spread works, as opposed to using someone else's. For example, the Celtic Cross. The Celtic Cross is a beautiful 10 card spread. I think it's 10, maybe more than that. But and it goes into detail, and it's really amazing. But I didn't want to copy that one. I wanted to have one of my own, so I came up with the Layers of Me reading. And the Layers of Me reading, I think it's like 15 cards, and the Layers of Me reading has been one of my popular spreads in my shop, and it's all about the client. all of the information, anything that you'd ever want to know about yourself is in that spread. And so to me, that was my way of being inspired from the Celtic Cross spread, but inspired to create my own. And by doing that, when I do a reading, because I created the spread, it's so much easier for me to do the reading because I already know the intentions that I had for that spread, and it makes the reading flow so much easier for me. So I highly recommend keeping a spreads journal and creating your own content. It really helps with your journey. This other journal I have, this is my custom reading journal, and it's also starting to turn into another spreads journal because this one's almost full, so I needed some more room. But this one started out as custom readings, and basically I would put down ideas that I had for clients, and when I have an option in my shop where if you want a custom reading, you email me and we discuss what you're reading you want about, what questions do you have for the cards, and then I come up with a personal spread for you, and I give you different price points. So I'll make a different size. I'll make a small, a medium, and a large version, and then they're all different prices, and you're able to pick based on your budget and what you prefer for your reading. And so that's an option that I have. And when I started doing that, a lot of people were emailing me about custom spreads, so I had to have something to write them in so I didn't forget. And that's why I have that journal for. So that's another thing you can do too. If you're just doodling and you're just coming up with like a little bit of ideas, write it down because you never know in the future when that's going to come in handy. The next journal that I keep is my business journal, and it's my purple book. And I'm so sad because I'm literally almost done. I'm almost done with it. I have maybe another quarter of it, so I guess I'm not that close to the end. But it's my spread, my business journal, and this guy has every order that I've ever received from a client since I began my store. And I started selling my readings back in November. No, it was September 2014, but I didn't start logging it till November. September and October, like the first 2 months of me having my shop open, I think I only made like two sales. And then in November, I started making a little bit more, and it's just been a nice progression since. But I needed somewhere to log it all, and I'm not one of those internet savvy people where you can do it on making a spreadsheet or whatever on Excel. I'm not quite there yet. I'm just learning how to use the Excel, but I prefer pen and paper and just keeping track in the old-fashioned way. So anytime I get an order from a client, it goes straight into my purple book. I won't show you guys because it's private information, but I basically put the date, the day of the week it is, the client's name, how much the reading is, and what reading it is, and then the client's contact information, their email address, or if it's a snail mail reading or a giveaway winner, I'll put the address down. And that's just my way of keeping track. And then also it's important just to have that for the future when you're doing your taxes and whatnot. And then I have notes next to the orders. So sometimes if a client has a specific request, whether it's a certain deck they want me to use or a certain question, or if they have multiple questions, I write it down next to the order so I'll remember. There's always you're always able to go back to look at your emails and the orders that you get in your emails, those confirmations. But if I have it on pen and paper in my journal, I just have my book with me. So this guy goes with me everywhere because if I'm working on a reading somewhere, at least I have that with me just in case. So for those of you guys who are starting your business, a business journal may be something you do want to eventually think about getting, because as the orders start to come in, and let's say you're making, you're getting 1 or 2, 3 sales a week, you want to be able to write it all down so that you can keep track, especially if you guys have a turnaround date. So for my readings, I offer a turnaround of 10 days from the day that they've made their purchase. And I do 10 days because I work a full-time job. So I work 40 hours a week, and I don't have the privilege of having all day to work on readings. I literally work on my readings at night when I get home from work and weekends. So My 10-day turnaround works best for me because it gives me a little bit of extra time to work on the stuff, especially if they're email readings. If a client orders video readings, I can get those out within a couple days. It's a lot easier for me than an email. Email readings take a little bit more time. Okay, so we talked about the journals. The last thing I wanted to talk to you guys to give you advice are tarot books. And I have a crap load behind me, but I have a pillow next to behind me, so I don't want to move around and make stuff fall. Because as you can see, I have my little setup behind me, and one bump and everything can come flying forward, and that won't be funny. So I have a compendium here. This is it's the companion book for the Gothic Tarot. So a lot of the tarot decks that are out there have companion books. If you have a deck that you purchase that comes with a companion book, I highly suggest purchasing the companion book because it's so much more thorough than the little white book that comes with the decks. You'll get more information out of it, and it's just easier to learn the cards with. Sorry, my foot is falling asleep. um, and so it's easier to learn the cards with, and if it comes with a companion book, it's so much better. So as you can tell, I already have I still read about the cards, you guys. It's an obsession. I feel like I'm at that point where I'm really, really savvy on the cards and the meanings, but there's still so much you guys can learn. You'll never know everything. Trust me, you'll never know everything. So having the compendiums are really cool. It's helpful. So I have one for here. I have one for the Vampire Tarot, and I think I have a couple more. But oh, the Angel Oracle that I have. There's a lot. So if it comes with a companion book, I highly suggest getting it. And just trust your intuition. That's probably the best advice I can give you guys, to trust your intuition. If you're pulling a card and you know what the general meaning of that card is, but your heart is telling you something different based on that client's question, go with your heart, go with your gut instinct. And 9 times out of 10, you're right. So trusting your intuition is very important, and that's just something you learn as you continue on with the journey. So I hope you guys found this helpful. I'm sorry that this was a little short and brief, but I really, really wanted to film. So if any of you guys have any other questions for me, leave them in the comment box. Send me a message on Tumblr, however you guys communicate with me. I really want to know so that I can film more videos that are helpful for you guys. But I wish you all the best on your tarot journeys, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.